Every loss is a lesson, not a life sentence. The problem is, too many people treat failure like a final destination, like it's a locked door with no key. But champions, real grinders, they know that loss is just feedback. It's a redirection, a teacher, a tool. When you take an L, you don't retreat, you reflect. You don't break down, you break through. That's the mindset that separates the ones who dream from the ones who dominate. See, most people only want the celebration part of the journey. They want the win, the applause, the recognition, but they don't want to deal with the sweat, the silence, the struggle. What they forget is that every major win in history had a trail of losses behind it. Ask any great, and they'll tell you the L's shaped them more than the W's ever did. You didn't lose because you're weak. You lost because life was trying to show you something you weren't ready to see. Maybe it was exposing your gaps, maybe it was building your patience, maybe it was teaching you to keep grinding when the lights go out. But it was never meant to define you, it was meant to refine you. You think steel gets strong without heat, diamonds don't shine without pressure. So what makes you think you can evolve without going through something? Your pain has purpose. Your setbacks are setups for your next level. The key is in how you respond. Do you replay the failure over and over like a punishment, or do you analyze it, extract the lesson, and level up? Most people waste their losses, they get bitter, they shut down, they give up. But the elite, the ones who really get it, they flip every L into a launch pad. They treat every failure like a gym session for the soul. They walk into every storm with the mindset, this is just training for the win I haven't earned yet. That's TGIM. That's why Monday matters. Monday is the restart button. It don't matter what last week looked like, today is a new round, a new rep, a new chance to use that pain, that lesson, that loss, and put it into action. The people who rise are not the ones who never fall. They're the ones who fall 100 times and get up 101. You're not weak because you lost. You're not broken because you failed. You're just in the process of becoming. You're in the cocoon stage, and yeah, it's tight, it's dark, it's uncomfortable, but that's where the wings grow. That's where the greatness is formed. The world might see a loss, but what's really happening is transformation. You're being tested because the next level can't accept the old version of you. The old habits, the old excuses, the old mindset, they don't fit where you're going. So life strips you, it humbles you, and then it builds you up again, better, faster, stronger. When you take a loss, the key is to own it. Don't run from it. Don't blame anybody, sit in it, study it, then stand up and say, all right, I got the message. That's when growth happens. That's when momentum shifts. That's when the comeback begins. Because the most dangerous person in any arena is not the one who's never lost, it's the one who lost, survived it, and came back smarter. The scoreboard doesn't show the sacrifice. You look up and see the score, the stats, the wins, the highlights, but what you don't see is the blood, the sweat, the tears behind every single point. What you don't see is the nights they cried themselves to sleep, the mornings they woke up when it was still dark outside, the moments they wanted to quit but didn't. The scoreboard shows the result, but it hides the grind. It hides the process, and the truth is, most people only want the scoreboard moments, but they're not willing to put in what it takes to get there. You want the win. Then you better be ready to live in the unseen, to operate in the shadows when nobody's clapping for you, when nobody's watching, when nobody believes. Champions know the scoreboard is just a reflection of what was already decided in the dark. You don't become a winner on game day, you become a winner in the off-season, in the quiet, in the ugly moments when you're training alone and doubting yourself but still pushing forward. The victory is earned long before the lights come on. You might get the trophy in front of the crowd, but the battle was won when no one saw you sacrificing your comfort, your rest, your peace, to stay locked in on the mission. That's why TGIM matters, because Monday is a test of your character, when there's no camera, no celebration, no reward, just work. The ones who understand that, they don't chase the scoreboard, they chase the grind. They fall in love with what it takes, not just what it gives. Most people want recognition before they put in repetition. They want validation without discipline, but the ones who truly rise, they go through it. They put their head down and get after it. They understand that the sacrifice is the currency for the dream. Every early morning is an investment. Every skipped party, every lonely moment, every hour of studying, sweating, struggling, that's equity. You're building value before the world ever sees the result. And when the scoreboard finally lights up and your name is on top, they'll call you lucky. They'll say you were gifted, but they didn't see what it cost. They didn't see what you paid to stand there. There are no shortcuts to legendary. You can't cheat the grind. You can't fake the reps. What you put in is what you get out, and if you haven't sacrificed, if you haven't suffered, if you haven't given something up for what you want, then don't expect to see your name on that scoreboard in bold. You gotta be willing to delay the praise, to go unnoticed, to be the underdog, to stay in the lab while everyone else is out celebrating. Because you know the real celebration is coming, not the kind with balloons and confetti, but the kind that lives in your bones when you know you earned it. When you know nobody gave it to you, nobody handed it over, you took it. The scoreboard can never measure your heart. It can't reflect your resilience, your commitment, your consistency. It won't show the times you chose discipline over distraction. It won't display the nights you fought through pain, disappointment, setbacks, and kept showing up. But you will know. You will carry it with you. You will walk into every room, every challenge, every storm with quiet confidence because you've already paid the price in full. You don't need applause when you've got purpose. You don't need approval when you've got discipline. The scoreboard will eventually catch up, but first you've got to grind like nobody's watching, because that's where greatness is forged. You can't win big if you fear losing small. That's the trap right there. Most people never reach their full potential because they're scared of falling. They're scared of making mistakes, of looking foolish, of failing in front of others. So they play it safe. They stay in the comfort zone, but let me tell you something. There's no greatness in safety. There's no breakthrough in the bubble. The people you admire, the ones who have done something powerful with their lives, they didn't tiptoe around fear, they ran through it. They understood that every small loss, every minor setback, every embarrassing moment was just a stepping stone toward something greater. You don't become a giant by avoiding failure. You become one by embracing it, by learning from it, by using it. The real game changers, the ones who dominate in business, sports, school, life, they take swings. They take risks. They fall on their face and get back up. They aren't worried about the small losses because their eyes are locked in on a much bigger prize. They understand that fear is a liar and comfort is a thief. Fear will whisper that it's not worth the risk. Fear will tell you to protect your image. Fear will convince you to wait, to stay quiet, to play small. But winners, they feel the fear and they move anyway. They know that if the goal is big enough, the losses along the way are just part of the cost. They understand that if you're not willing to lose a little now, you'll never win a lot later. See, playing small might protect your ego, but it will rob your destiny. And deep down you know that. You weren't built for average. You weren't made to settle. But settling becomes a habit when you let the fear of small losses take control. You start shrinking your dreams to fit your comfort zone instead of stretching your character to match your vision. That's not living, that's surviving. And TGIM is not about surviving, it's about thriving. It's about waking up with purpose and going after what's yours, even if it means stumbling, even if it means losing some battles on the way to winning the war. You gotta stop being afraid to fail small, because every small loss contains a big lesson. Every time you mess up, you're getting stronger. Every time you fall short, you're learning something you couldn't have learned any other way. The problem is, we've been trained to fear losing more than we desire winning. We let the fear of failure paralyze our progress, but greatness doesn't care about your fear. It requires faith. It requires you to show up when it's risky, to bet on yourself when the outcome ain't guaranteed, to say yes to opportunity even when there's a chance you might not nail it the first time. You will lose some small fights on the way to a big win, but if you never enter the ring, you never even get the chance. So go all in, make the call, launch the project, speak up, try out, step forward, not because you're guaranteed to win, but because the experience of trying will teach you more than standing still ever could. You grow when you stretch, not when you shrink. And every time you face a fear, every time you risk something small, you become someone stronger, someone wiser, someone more prepared to handle the victory when it finally comes. Resilience is the real trophy. Not the medals, not the money, not the praise, it's the bounce back, the refusal to fold, the decision to stand up after life knocks you down again and again. That's what defines greatness. That's what separates average from extraordinary. See, people talk about winning like it's just about performance, about talent, about who's faster, smarter, stronger. But what they don't realize is that performance fades without perseverance. Talent dies out without tenacity. It's not who hits the hardest, it's who keeps standing after being hit. Life will test you. Life will break you down, stretch you, bruise you, and try to convince you that you're not enough. But resilience says, I'm still here. Resilience says, I didn't come this far to stop now. Resilience is the heart of the champion, the fuel of the unstoppable. You can't fake resilience, you can't buy it. You earn it in the fire. You earn it when your plans fall apart, and your faith gets shaky, and your energy gets low, but you keep showing up anyway. Every time you keep going when quitting feels easier, you're building muscle the world can't see. You're building a strength that's deeper than the surface, deeper than stats and scores, and that kind of strength, that kind of internal power, that's what creates legends. That's what turns setbacks into setups, what transforms loss into legacy. Because anybody can celebrate when it's going good, but can you show up when the lights go out? Can you still believe when the results don't match the effort? Can you keep swinging when your back is against the wall, and you feel like nobody sees you? Most people want to win, but they don't want to endure. They don't want to feel the sting of failure, the weight of disappointment, the grind of repetition with no guarantee. But the truth is, the win is in the endurance. The trophy is earned through pain, through persistence, through the days when you question yourself and still press forward. Resilience means showing up when the applause is gone, when the motivation runs out, and all you've got is discipline and heart. That's when you're really tested. That's when the decision gets made about who you're becoming. Because it's easy to be committed when it's convenient, but true resilience shows up when it's costly. You can look at anybody on top right now, whether it's business, sports, life, and behind their success is a long trail of battles they survived. Not just one, but survived. They weren't perfect, they weren't unstoppable, but they were resilient. They refused to let a moment define their entire journey. They didn't let failure have the last word. They got up again and again and again. Resilience is what turns pressure into power. It's what transforms brokenness into breakthrough. It's not about having all the answers. It's about having the heart to keep asking the right questions, to keep pursuing, to keep believing that something greater is on the other side of the pain. In a world that glorifies instant success and overnight fame, resilience is rare. But it's the rare ones who leave a legacy. It's the rare ones who inspire, who elevate, who change the game not because they never got hit, but because they never stayed down. So when you think about winning, don't just look for the moments of triumph, look for the moments of resistance. Look for the scars, the struggles, the stories of survival. That's where the real victory lies. That's where the spirit is forged. Because in the end, it's not about whether or not life knocks you down, it's about how many times you decide to rise. Stop avoiding pain, that's where the growth lies. Everybody wants to rise, everybody wants to evolve, everybody wants to win, but nobody wants to hurt. Nobody wants to struggle. Nobody wants to walk through the fire. But that's exactly where transformation happens. You don't grow in the comfort zone. You don't become great doing what's easy. The weight that hurts you today will strengthen you tomorrow. The pain you're running from is the very thing that's trying to stretch you into the next version of yourself. That resistance, that discomfort, that sting of failure, it's not your enemy. It's your greatest ally if you're willing to face it head on. Most people think pain is punishment, but it's really preparation. It's the classroom where champions are made. You want purpose. You want to live on another level. Then you better be ready to embrace the pressure, the pain, the process. Because real success demands something from you, it doesn't come cheap. It's going to pull something out of you that you didn't even know was there. You'll have to dig deep. You'll have to break through limits you didn't think you could overcome. And that only happens when you stop running from the hard stuff and start leaning into it. When you start welcoming it. When you start saying, let's go, even when it hurts. You can't become a warrior without the battle. You can't become wise without the wounds. You can't get the crown without carrying the cross. The reason most people stay stuck is because they're trying to go around the pain instead of going through it. But you don't get to skip the struggle. There is no detour around growth. There is no shortcut to strength. You've got to feel it, face it, and fight through it. That's the cost of leveling up. That's the price of greatness. And the people who understand that, the people who embrace the pain as part of the process, those are the ones who rise. Those are the ones who last. You can't numb the pain and expect to feel the power. You can't avoid the lesson and expect to own the victory. Everything you want is on the other side of discomfort. You want discipline. It's built through daily sacrifice. You want confidence. It's forged in the fire of failure. You want passion. It's birthed in the pit when you've been knocked down and decide to stand up anyway. That's where character is shaped. That's where faith is tested. That's where the old version of you dies and the new version is born. But you'll never get there if you keep choosing ease over effort, comfort over challenge, excuses over execution. Pain is not the enemy, it's the compass. It points to the place that needs your attention, your effort, your energy. When something hurts, that's your signal that something needs to change. It's a wake-up call, not a shut-down command. It's life whispering, there's more in you. Even when you feel like quitting. And if you stop trying to silence it and start listening to it, you'll find that your greatest breakthroughs often come right after your deepest breakdowns. But you've got to be willing to go through the valley to get to the mountain. You've got to endure the storm to appreciate the sunlight. You've got to walk through the wilderness before you step into the promised land. So the next time life hurts, don't hide, don't retreat, don't fall back into fear. Stand up, lean in, push forward, because pain is not where you die, it's where you're reborn. It's where the greatness inside you is activated. It's where average ends and excellence begins. You don't grow by avoiding the fire, you grow by walking through it with your head held high, knowing that everything trying to break you is really building you piece by piece. Your mindset determines whether a loss breaks you or builds you. The loss itself doesn't decide your future, your perspective does. Two people can go through the same failure, the same rejection, the same setback, but come out completely different. One gives up, breaks down, checks out. The other uses it as fuel, as motivation, as the foundation to build something even stronger. That's the power of mindset. It's not just positive thinking, it's warrior-level focus. It's the decision to see every hit, every fall, every L not as the end, but as a setup for the next level. The difference between champions and quitters isn't the pain they feel, it's what they choose to believe about that pain. When you adopt a growth mindset, nothing is wasted. Not the failure, not the tears, not the silence, not the hard seasons. Every single experience becomes a tool. It sharpens you, strengthens you, educates you. You stop asking, why did this happen to me? And start asking, what is this teaching me? You start seeing the loss as a mirror, not a prison. It reflects where you are, but it doesn't lock you in place. A fixed mindset says, I'm not good enough, I messed up, I failed. A growth mindset says, I'm not there yet, but I'm learning and I will be better. And that shift right there is what allows people to keep moving when most would stop. The most successful people on this planet didn't get there because they never lost, they got there because they refused to stay defeated. They didn't let the loss define them, they let it develop them. They weren't afraid to face the truth. They weren't afraid to admit, yeah, I took an L, but I'm not done. The moment you let your loss speak louder than your belief, you forfeit the growth it came to give you. But when you silence the inner critic and amplify the inner warrior, you turn the loss into leverage. That's mindset. That's power. That's how you transform a breakdown into a breakthrough. Your thoughts create your outcomes. If you think small, you live small. If you believe you're a failure, every challenge will feel like confirmation. But if you believe you're growing, you'll see opportunity even in the ashes. It's not about lying to yourself, it's about leading yourself. It's about taking control of the narrative in your head and flipping it into one that serves you, not one that suffocates you. When the storm comes, the person with the right mindset doesn't panic, they plant their feet, lock their eyes on the goal, and say, this won't stop me, this will strengthen me. That's not fantasy, that's mental toughness. That's what separates those who make history from those who repeat it. You can't always control the losses, but you can always control your response, and that response starts with your mind. When you believe that every loss holds a lesson, when you believe that setbacks are setups, when you believe that failure is just feedback, you become unstoppable. Not because you never fall, but because you refuse to stay down. You stop waiting for the win to feel strong and start building strength right in the middle of the storm. And every time you bounce back, every time you choose resilience over regret, you prove that your mindset is your real weapon, not your circumstances, not your background, not your resources, but your belief in what's possible through relentless growth. Winners think different, they process pain different, they don't get stuck in what happened, they get focused on what's next. They use their mind to pull their body forward, to pull their habits forward, to pull their life forward. That's why your mindset matters more than the loss. That's why it's not about what happens to you, it's about what happens inside you. Because once your mind is made up that you will rise, no loss, no failure, no setback can stop what's coming next.